What is up, YouTube? My name is Joystick. I'm here to bring you a brand new DPS meta tier list video. I'm going to be going through each and every hero individually, ranking them S through D tier, showing you guys what are like some of the best picks in the game in terms of DPS and damage. Let's hop right into this. Let's start out right here with McCree going right into S tier. So McCree is insanely powerful, and a lot of people think he's overtuned, but you know, if you're gonna be an S tier hero, you gotta be a little bit broken in some ways. So McCree is just so strong, consistent damage output, you know, with his primary fire, you know, even his right click, fanning the hammer is a reliable ability, and especially his flashbang is what makes him insanely good. That flashbang, it basically counters like the majority of the heroes in the game. So you're gonna want to be saving that for like either flankers or dive targets, people that are trying to attack either you or your backline. And you can even use flashbang aggressively if you want to set up like earth shatters with the flash, stuff like that. It's really up to your playstyle and stuff like that. But I think McCree is definitely deserving of S tier. Been like a must pick almost, basically like perma meta for like the last month and a half, 2 months. So McCree definitely deserves that spot. And then, you know, High Noon isn't the greatest ultimate, but it definitely can find value, and I think people sleep on, you know, High Noon in terms of zoning and being able to confirm kills. So I think High Noon is definitely an underrated ultimate in my opinion. I'm gonna bring in Mei at A tier. Mei is definitely a hero that's been really strong with the rush composition with that Ryan Zarya, the Lucio, and the Baptiste. People think that was meta. Pairing up Mei with the McCree. So what you're gonna want to do is like rush in, wall off the enemy Reinhardt, and then take out the target, you know, isolating targets literally, and Mei just becomes that like really strong crowd control character. In terms of the meta, I think she's, you know, doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's that crowd control that makes her good, freezing targets, and then her ultimate ability Blizzard is extremely strong as well, you know, being able to like freeze a point or freeze a payload and just like hold the objective and create that space and help your tanks out a lot. So that's why Mei is so strong. I think she could fall down to maybe B tier pretty soon. We'll see how the meta plays out and stuff like that. Next, I'm bringing in Tracer. I think Tracer is a good you know, alternative to slot in for Mei on some maps in terms of meta compositions. I think Tracer is great, you know, just securing the backline, you know, annoying, you know, the backline in general, and just being that like annoying Tracer. I think she's just always been good at putting down that poke damage, and then also Pulse Bomb is really good. As long as you're able to land those, you can do a ton of damage with Pulse Bomb, and usually more often than not you see like teammates run into each other with Pulse Bomb and you get like double, triple kills. So I think Tracer is still pretty solid in terms of meta. You can combo Pulse Bomb with Graviton Surge. You can combo it with Orisa Pull, stuff like that. It's I think Tracer's great with dive as well. If you're running like a Winston Zarya type of dive or Winston Diva dive, Tracer's great to follow up on that damage, you know, in terms of diving in general. And even with the rush, she's pretty good as well. So I definitely wouldn't count out Tracer. Definitely a strong pick. So I'm gonna bring in Ashe, A tier. I think Ashe is you know, kind of always been pretty high in terms of meta, like A, B, floating around S at one point. But I think Ashe is still strong with, you know, Dynamite is really a reliable ability. Her primary fire is pretty great against, you know, breaking shields and even taking out targets in the air. If you're playing against a Pharah Mercy, stuff like that. I think Ashe is good in those situations. And then Bob is one of the best abilities in the game in my opinion. Being able to contest the point with your ultimate ability is absolutely insane. And I feel like people kind of like let that fly under the radar, how powerful Bob is. So like you either like have to deal with it or you have to kill it, right? Or you have to have someone like shield the damage from Bob. So I think that's a really strong ability. And Ashe, you know, it definitely keeps her up into the upper echelon of the meta tier list in terms of damage. So that completely makes sense to put her into A tier. Next, I'm going to bring in Widowmaker. I think Widow kind of still finds her her spot in the meta, just because, you know, Widow's just that peak potential character. If you're able to land your shots on Widow, you're able to change the game like on a dime. So, and that's how oppressive Widow can be, as long as you're hitting those shots. So even against like the rush meta, like you still can find picks, or if you're playing against dive, it's you got to play a different play style. But you know, Widowmaker has always been pretty strong no matter what meta it is. So I think Widow is okay to be an A tier, maybe even a B plus at this point, but I think it's safe to say Widow is an A tier character. So I'm gonna bring in Echo. I think Echo is she did get a nerf recently, but I didn't think that did too much to how great she was. You know, if you pair her up with like a Mercy, her damage is absolutely insane with the sticky bombs, and then her beam ability, so you'll be able to like one tap characters and like take out tanks extremely quickly. Not to mention that her ultimate ability basically takes on the role of another character, so you can basically copy another character, and then it's just, you know, it's absolutely insane from there. The amount of damage you can do and the amount of sustain you can have as a DPS character is unbelievable. So I think Echo is strong in that fashion. I like when you know, when you pair up either Echo with Tracer into that dive, that double bubble with Zarya. I think that's a great comp as well. She's kind of a divey character in a sense, so keep that in mind. But you can play her into a rush composition. I think I would slot in fine. You know, being able to copy a Reinhardt or copy a Zarya, like you're just gonna be doing so much, you know, damage and gaining so much utility for your team as well. On top of that, I'm bringing in Pharah, A tier. I think Pharah is definitely rising in the meta, and I don't think people are noticing it. But I think Pharah is a little bit, you know, a little bit better than people think. It's this hero does insane amount of damage, pretty hard to kill if you have a, you know, the Mercy pocket, and like not to mention if you're smart with Rocket Barrage, you can do a ton of damage with that as well. So I definitely wouldn't count out Pharah in the meta, and if you are a good Pharah player, you should be playing this hero consistently. And I think she could even be rated higher, but like not enough people are playing Pharah, and I think most people in the game are hit scan players, so it doesn't help that she's a projectile. So I think that could be part of it, but Pharah is extremely strong. I would recommend it. If you are a projectile main and you're looking, you can't really play Genji in this meta, Pharah is a great pickup. Bring in Symmetra right behind our last A tier hero. I think Symmetra is a great rush hero, but although I think she isn't great on every map, like, you know, you're gonna want to run Symmetra if you're on like Hanamura, TP to point, stuff like that, or if you're on like Lijiang Tower, like control maps, I think she's pretty good, and 2CP, I think she's pretty good. Other than that, Symmetra can be countered pretty easily, so be careful when you choose this hero and know like what maps she's good on. I think is the way to look at it. And I think, you know, she can do insane amounts of damage, not to mention that her ultimate ability is a gigantic wall and really can just win you a fight just based on her ult alone. So being able to time that efficiently, I think Symmetra is a really strong character. I'm gonna bring in Hanzo, B tier. I think Hanzo is kind of a hero that you can, you know, is like a safe pick hero. Like you can't really go wrong playing Hanzo right now. You know, you can combo his ultimate ability with Graviton Surge. Obviously, everyone knows Grav Dragon, and then he just does consistent damage with his arrows and the Stormbow. So he's able to stay alive pretty consistently. You know, it's Hanzo. He's pretty hard to kill for the most part, but I think if you're looking for a safe pick and you don't really know who to play in some situations, especially if there's high ground, he's able to wall climb. I think that's an advantage for Hanzo. You know, you can always pick him over, you know, maybe an Ashe or something if you're more projectile player anyways. So Hanzo is a safe pick, I would say. Bring in Doomfist, and I think this is a pick that is kind of on the rise. I think Doom is a little bit overlooked, but he's pretty strong if you're able to you know, combo abilities and, you know, maybe ask for a Zarya bubble on your entry. Doom does insane amounts of damage and can really throw your team off, and you know, Doom can be really hard to kill as well from what I've noticed. So Smart Doomfist players are definitely utilizing this hero correctly and are going to be gaining a lot of SR. So be careful playing against this Doom and don't underestimate it. But that being said, I think Doom is very counterable. Like if you have him, McCree is the best hero in the DPS category. McCree, you can counter this character. So that's why I don't think he's necessarily an A tier character. But he is strong, okay? Don't get me wrong. He is a character to be on the watch for sure. Bring in Junkrat at actually B tier. Junk, I think, is, you know, another character that always is pretty good in just about every meta. And I don't think he ever like goes above B tier, but that's okay just because he's like basically great in every meta. You know, Tire is always a great ability in terms of ultimates. And then just that consistent damage from mines and the spam that you can gain from a Junkrat, it's always good, you know? You're always going to find random picks, and you're always going to do a lot of shield break, and you're always able to sustain basically by yourself. Junkrat, you know, definitely a pick that you can go on a decent amount of the maps in the game as well. So bring in Torbjorn, B tier. I think Torb is a niche pick, which I think Torb should be. You know, great on defenses, like pretty solid on 2 CP, I would say. Other than that, I don't really love Torb in the meta. I don't think he's anywhere close to the meta composition. But if you are a good Torb main and you know like great Torb spots and like turret locations, I think it's everything. If you're able to like put up turrets in spots where it's really hard to break, but you're getting a lot of value, that's where Torb really shines. So you're gonna want to like do your research on Torb, I would say, and make sure you have those like, you know, those Reddit Torb turret spots on at the ready. So we're gonna bring in Sombra. I think Sombra is kind of rising in the meta, but barely. She did get a little bit of a buff, which helps a lot, but her damage output isn't great. That's what they just need I think they, you know, if they needed to buff this hero, they need to buff her damage, and I think then she would be really lethal. I think she does just a little less than like what Tracer does, and it's just not enough. Like Tracer just does enough to do enough where she's actually contributing a lot of damage to her team. Sombra is like out of the fight a little too often, and when she is in the fight, it does not feel like she's doing enough damage. So but that's okay, because EMP is still a very, very strong ability. So EMP combos with just about every ult in the game, and that's where I think she gets the most value. Next, bring in a Reaper at C tier. I think Reaper is a situational pick, pretty niche. Reaper kind of gets countered by a lot of the other DPS in the game. Obviously, if you're having McCree at the, you know, as the king of the meta, Reaper is never gonna shine that well. If you get flashed out of basically all your abilities, you're just gonna get shut down quickly. So I think Reaper is only good on a couple maps like King's Row, very narrow maps like that. You know, Eichenwald, maybe Last Point, just or maybe on 2 CP. I think it would be okay for Reaper. You just got to be very, very careful and bait out abilities before you can even initiate with this character as well. And in Soldier, I think Soldier is just another hero that kind of gets mitigated by everything around him. Obviously, he has like pretty decent damage output, but you got to be like consistently hitting shots, consistently hitting Helix rockets, and trying to stay alive, like with your like positioning more than anything, because if you can get dived pretty easily, and you kind of need a lot of support from your other teammates. So I don't really recommend Soldier in the meta, but if you are a Soldier main, there are some bright spots to be looking out for. Next, I'm bringing in Bastion at C tier. Bastion is kind of a hero that can be countered extremely easily, so I don't love him in the meta, but I have seen Bastion work on like a lot of payload maps for running that pirate ship, protect the president type of composition. Bastion's pretty decent there. Other than that, like, I think if you don't actively counter Bastion, you are going to lose to him, though. That is what I've seen. Like, if you don't actively swap your supports to like an Ana to sleep him or Baptiste, you kind of just lose. You need extreme sustain from your supports, and your tanks have to be on the same page as well. You can't be running like straight dive into a Bastion. You're just gonna lose. So you're going to be wanting that run, that Ryan Zarya, the Sigma, even a double shield, even against Bastion. So you got to be careful, because this hero can take over the game if you're not able to counter him correcect. Last but not least, but actually least, we got Genji at D tier. Genji still terrible damage output. They need to fix this character. Nano Blade is good, but that's about it. You know, Genji's primary, you know, his deflect hitbox is broken. You know, it feels like you deflect flashbang from McCree and it doesn't even matter because it's Genji. You know, they literally ruined this character. So Genji, hopefully he'll get some buffs in the future. I'm praying, because I love Genji. He's one of my favorite DPS to play, but unfortunate, Genji does take a last place in terms of meta. That'll wrap this video up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys for showing some love on the Twitch as well, twitch.tv/joystick if you guys want that live content, and I will see you in the next video.